Our greatest journey is not conquering a mountain to sea or space, folks. It's to become fully alive, to have faced adversity and mowed that sucker down, to have stood still in the face of our monsters and watched as they vanished into the ether. And it's this journey that calls to the hero within every single one of us, including Lex Veldhuis. Hailing from the Netherlands, Lex is a Twitch streaming powerhouse with close to 250,000 people following his every move. A tribe that he has even met in person at his Lex live events. And in this episode of The Hero's Journey, we talk to Lex about his childhood and his refusal to follow the herd, how a 9-3 offsuit moment sent him hurtling down the poker road, and plenty of advice on the mental and physical health issues that can come with a laser-like focus to be the best. Ladies and gentlemen, our hero, Lex Veldhuis. Lex Veldhuis, welcome to The Hero's Journey. How are you doing these days?
I'm really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Where are you at the moment?
We're in Vlissingen in the Netherlands. So it's everything going good here. Summer starting, but lots of work to be done. We just had a house built, so that's super exciting. So we're moving houses, which is a lot of work, but it couldn't be better, honestly.
When I was growing up, it was never the Netherlands. It was always Holland. My vision of Holland was Johan Cruyff. It was like 78, like the World Cup, all the ticker tape, the orange. I never even knew what the Netherlands was. I was like, where's the Netherlands? Like when you grew up, was it the Netherlands, Holland? How did you call it?
Yeah, it's just both things, it's I think Holland is a lot easier because a lot of people know immediately what you mean, and it's not necessarily something that is official, but everybody knows it. And even in a lot of sports, it just says HOL when they abbreviate the country. So I think for a lot of people that catches on most.
So tell us a little bit about what part of the world, Netherlands, I assume it might not be, but where did you grow up and what was the world like? How old are you? What year was it? That kind of stuff.
I grew up in a pretty small town on the coast. Has 40,000 people in the Netherlands. It was pretty calm, very far away from a big city. It's kind of like it's a harbor city though. It's a harbor. The last stop on the train station, 40,000 people. The next kind of bigger city would be an hour away, which is long for us. It's very far away, kind of. Because Holland is pretty condensed. So growing up, it was pretty calm. Lots of beach, lots of ocean life, lots of outdoor activities. Lots of playing outside. I think if you grow up in a small town, you know a lot of other kids. It's very easy to visit other kids that you're in elementary school with because everybody lives so close. So I had a really calm, active, younger life.
When I grew up, the place where I lived, which was Ogmore Vale, which was a very provincial, small little place of 8,000 people. I can honestly say that like my experiences as a child and the culture and everything that went on in that place really shaped me as a human being. So the way that I view the world, the way that I get so terrified about everything, the way that I'm this like angry little man trying to fight against everybody because the way I was picked on in school. What was it about the area that you grew up in that you think has marked you through your life and helped to create the personality that we see today?
I think the area that I grew up in, I think that my character fits that pretty well when I'm older. But I think growing up when I was younger, it's kind of hard for me to find my groove because it's funny because I don't necessarily like a lot of change and all that stuff, but I've always wanted to experience things when I was younger. And it was a little bit harder here. It was a little bit more set to, this is kind of the structure that you go through. There's a saying around here that says, act normal, that's crazy enough, which really says a lot about, not putting your head on the chopping block, not really wanting to stick out in the crowd, all that stuff. So people really kind of like the down the line growing up here, which is why a lot of people and younger kids move to the bigger cities because, they kind of want to escape that. But obviously when you're 14, 15, you can't really escape that. You're just in middle/high school, which we are at from our 12th to our 18th. So you're just stuck in school, and if you want to make any choice, it's going to have to be after that. So at first it was very chill for me. I was, when I was 12, 13, I was always raised with that school's very important. You have to try, you have to get the best grades you can. My dad was very, very academic minded and school minded, and I always did well. I was very good in school, and I didn't really pull any crazy shit outside of it. But puberty hit me pretty hard. So then I started rebelling. I started going, off the grid a little bit. I would, climb out the house at night. I would skip school a lot, all that kind of stuff. So I really started to rebel, which really clashed with the mentality that was here locally, because it stands out much quicker when you do that in a very small town. So, which then made me feel like, I wasn't really doing well in school, and my parents were like, what are you doing? Like, what exactly are you doing? It really clashed with their kind of perceived the image that I had with them as well before that, and I think this was just like a character thing, just kind of coming out later, because I did want to experience things and didn't want to do things, but you're immature and you don't really know how to say that. Plus, if you say like, I want to experience things, I don't want to do certain things, and everybody thinks, yeah, okay, obviously you just don't want to go to school, or you're whining about having to do work or chores or summer jobs, that sort of stuff. So that always kind of clashed, and that made me rebel more. So I was really searching for a lot of things when I was like 14 to 18 or something. So I think it's been a very important period in my life, because I actually think that later on I was able to make the jump to poker with more confidence, because I was kind of able to put two and two together from that period of time. I didn't really want to go the conventional route. I think looking back, I also had like severe concentration issues with ADD and all that stuff that I didn't really, never really addressed. So it's weird, because I had a lot of fun during that time, but I think if you look at it like structurally and, the roads you're taking in life, also career-wise and professionally, it was super unclear at that time. And but it all makes sense when I look back on it now. It's not like I look back and think, oh, that was a tougher period or something. I had a blast. I mean, obviously climbing out the house and going out with friends is super fun, so it's really nice that it also was very constructive in the end.
I quite clearly remember my puberty, the 14 to 18 kind of experimental breakaway years. Mine were all about fitting in, like looking in the mirror, not liking who I saw, not understanding why I couldn't get the girl, or people were calling me names, and a real desperation of fitting, which then led to wanting to drink more than everybody else, wanting to take more drugs than everybody else, wanting to climb higher trees than anybody else, that kind of risk taking to kind of like say, hey, look at me. And my school life deteriorated as a result of that. What was your impetus when you turned 14 that was different than just anybody's normal puberty? What was your drive to rebel? Where did it come from?
I think it's just acting out also, because you just don't really know. And, I also think that a lot of things were unclear still or something. Like, I really like clarity and like set ways stuff goes, and just to be able to understand all that, but you don't know because you don't have experience. So I think I kind of had the urge to just go out and do stuff that was wild, because also just to gain some of that experience. It's hard for me to just think of a drive. I think it's also because I was with friends that went through the same thing. So I think that our rebellious stuff felt safe. I think there's a part of me that, I'm more introverted than extroverted. So I always like to, look at stuff. So kind of, kind of observe before I do something. So, you stay more quiet in some settings. It's not like, I just went out and approached girls. But when I actually got to connect with a girl, like this is MSN time or whatever, when I started talking to girls, that would be more kind of my area, because I could have a real conversation instead of like an on the spot moment where you just had to be this like confident guy or something. And it's not that I lacked confidence, but it's just like you just lack life experience. You know, you don't know where your qualities are, you don't know your good points, your bad, what you're comfortable with. You don't even know what girls like, right? So I think, yeah.
Is there an aspect of your teenage years that still pops up today?
I have it in poker sometimes. There's definitely a moment like in my teenage years where I would just say like, okay, fuck it, you know, and then just go for it and just do it and suffer the consequences. And what I really liked looking back on it is that I took responsibility for stuff we did. For instance, and I like that in poker too. I think that's been one of my strengths in poker, where I could just say like, okay, you know, I took a risk. Back in the day, I would take a lot of risk with bankroll and stuff. I would take a risk, and then I would just say like, okay, this can go wrong. I can lose a lot of money, but that's fine, right? I'm taking a shot. Games are easy. This is, you know, 14, 13 years ago. Games are easy. I'm taking a shot. And if I'd lose, I would never, ever be down and out about it. Like I could lose my whole bankroll, go to sleep 11 hours, and then wake up and feel fine. So that to me, I've always liked in poker as well. And I did the same thing when I was a teenager. There was one time we, in the middle of the night, we're drinking some beers on Thursday evening. And this is like when we're, I think, 16 or 17. One of my friends' mom was gone, and we go over there, we drink some beers, and we start talking about pulling something at school. And we actually climbed over the fence, the perimeter of the school, and we painted all the benches and the woodwork, and we painted everything like bright orange, bright red. Like we just changed everything. Garbage cans, we painted everything. We knew where the cameras were. We knew exactly which ones worked, which one didn't. So we spent the whole night, and we're just, you know, smoking weed, drinking beers, and it was fantastic. Like that night was so much fun. So next morning, we go into school and we see that everything's painted. Everybody's like, what happened here? What's going on? But we did it nicely too. There wasn't any paint splashed on the floor, on the bricks or anything. It was nicely done. Like some people actually thought they redid it and liked it, you know? So then the teacher came up to me and he said, "We have you on camera. We know you and your friends did this." And I told him, "I know you don't have that camera because it doesn't work, but yes, we did it." You know, and he's like, "Oh, okay." You know, and that actually, and I was like, just relax. You know, if we have to repaint it, we'll do it or something. You know, like that kind of taking responsibility. And I would do that more often if I messed up with my parents or something. I'd be like, "Did you do this? Did you do that? Or why'd you do this?" And I would just be like, "Yeah, that's true." You know, "Is it true that you're not going to school much?" "Yeah, that's true. I'm home a lot." "Why?" And then I would try to explain it. And I would rebel. I would get angry or something. You know, it's not like I was like the most balanced dropout kind of kid in the teens. But I think that if I think about that, then I think about like that kind of facing the music is what I've done in poker later.
When you were telling me that story there, and the teacher said she got you on camera, you're like, "No, you haven't, but we did it anyway." The first thing that popped into my head was authority. How have you been around authority, both as a kid and as you've grown up into today?
I think I've dealt with authority pretty poorly. I've always been very like I never really liked to take somebody's word for it if I thought it was different. You know, sometimes when I talk to my fiance now and she's talking about a work situation, I'll tell her like, "So why is your boss saying that? Like, how can he? Why did you say this or did you say that?" And she just tells me like, "You cannot do that because you know they're just ranked higher, and sometimes you just have to say okay, thanks, because they got that job and you got this one." You know, and that for me is really hard. So it's kind of funny because we don't really talk about those situations anymore. Like she'll tell them, but I know my advice means nothing to her.
You know your boundary.
Yeah, exactly. So she knows that I'm not good at that stuff. So I would say that I've always kind of had a problem with authority, but it's more when authority expects you to stop critical thinking, I think. So when it doesn't seem logical to me, it just seems silly. You know, it's the same thing with, you know, company politics or social things. If somebody says something that just seems absurd to me, but they're a popular person, or like they have a lot of people kind of behind them or something, that doesn't really bother me. I will still call it out or just not care about it and kind of avoid that person. It's so yeah, that I've never really liked the most popular girls, for instance, either. I don't know if that's the same.
Right.
That might be the same kind of thing, but yeah.
Well, I mean, so far talking to you, like in the first 10 minutes, it feels like there is it coming up for me is like the flock mentality of societal conditioning,
Yeah.
where the TV, the radio, the magazines, the adverts, your parents, your teachers, this is the way that you should behave. Be a white sheep, and you're like somewhere along the line, I want to be the black sheep, which leads to, I don't want to like those girls that you're all liking. I don't want to wear these clothes that you're all wearing. I don't want to do this studying that you're all doing. Does that land
Yeah.
anywhere?
Yeah, and I don't think it necessarily comes from I just kind of, I want to be on the other side of it. I just never understood it. It's like I just never, or it never interested me. It's not. I didn't really care about who or what was popular or who had the most friends or something. Or like I said, I think the biggest example is like a super popular girl. If a super popular girl would, in my opinion, would act more shallowly than other girls, and then I would have zero interest, not even if they talk to me or something. It's just, I don't know, maybe it is something that kind of puts me off as well, because even talking about it, I do think I have a certain against the grain mentality, but it's not, it doesn't come from like a stubborn place, or like, oh, I'm gonna kick the system or something. It's not because of a drive like that.
What I found talking to you on a personal level is that you have a deep respect for authenticity. And we exist in a world, this is not the poker world, but the world. We exist in a very inauthentic world. So
Yeah.
a good example of that is, here's this beautiful looking woman or girl, and we all look at her and we want her on our arm. But there's a certain inauthenticity and fakeness to that, and adherence to some social norm, whereas you want to get to know her first and find out what she's really like before you make a decision. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good perspective, because it's the same thing, with kind of, I love code of honor kind of stuff. If you like a handshake, if I shake somebody's hand and I shake my hand like, we're gonna do this, or I got you, then I mean it. And I expect other people to mean it. Like people that kind of break the handshake code, that to me, I keep that with me for life. If somebody's done that to me, if they looked into my eyes and they said something, and obviously people fuck up, and stuff goes wrong, but and that's absolutely fine. Like people make mistakes, and I understand that sometimes people say stuff for a reason, but if somebody with no good reason just kind of clearly goes back on their word, that's huge for me. Or if they kind of break that code, or the handshake, or it's authenticity is super important for me. Yeah, and it's funny because you meet, and that's super important in poker, and I think that's why it's one of the reasons why it's interesting, because in poker you get into so many more situations where that matters and where that's being tested. And that's what I kind of like about it. Like it's such a huge difference. Well, sometimes somebody asks me, can you send me 5K on stars, and I'll send it to them, and then I might know them less than the other person that asked, and you're like, oh no, I can't right now, it's a big series coming up or whatever.
Yeah.
I love that, like little microscopic, those judgment situations that you need to take a read on somebody, or how good people's words are, and it's not a fun game when it doesn't work out, but it's
but if you get it right, there's a certain efficiency to it as well, in there. Like someone's just approached me to write their autobiography for them, and I was talking to Liza about it, and Liza was like, right, you need to get a lawyer and you need to draw up a contract. And I'm like, no, I trust the guy. I just want to do my word is my bond thing. And she's like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, no, I want to do that. I don't want to be into this. I just want to trust the guy. And if it goes tits up, it goes tits up. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I've been burnt, as well in those situations, but I still like it better to be out in those situations than to fully protect myself and not do anything like that. So It's just also like, I think it's a more fun way of experiencing and going through life if you just keep trying to make these connections with people. I mean, if you have 19 connections that are super good and times it works out, you get burned the 20th time, I think that evens it out easily, where you can still draw some pleasure or experience from those 19 that went well. And I mean, the loss as well, obviously, like, that teaches you a lot. I've vouched for people for tons of money that went wrong and I had to pay up, and after that was done and I stuck by my words and I paid the money, and I felt so proud of myself. I was like, it almost felt like a win. It's so crazy. Like, even though I lost a lot of money on it, it felt like a win because I stuck to my word that time and I did it, so.
It's almost like walking through life with integrity, trust, honor being like really core values. And then it's not enough to just have them on a piece of paper in your bathroom cabinet. You need to live them. And when you live them, you're going to attract people who have similar values. So the likelihood of you getting burned is going to be less and less. And then when you do, you just pivot and tweak, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's I think that it's so important to get experiences in life. I'll never understand I wanted to go to Thailand, but I'm not going to go because I'll probably hate it, but everybody likes it. Or I don't eat sushi. Have you ever tried it? No, I have never tried it. That sort of stuff that blows my mind. Like, I don't understand it. If you haven't experienced something, like, you should just say, I don't know. I've never tried it. It's like, why would you probably hate it? You've never tried it. You've never tried it. You've never given it a chance. And I think the same way works with experiences and people and connections and stuff. So, I think it's good to get experience and talking to people and where they're from and find out and learn stuff about cultures and travel and, spend money and do stuff. And and I think that's one of the reasons actually why, now thinking on it, I think it's one of the reasons why I always took a lot of risk in the early stage of my poker career, because I would always find myself in situations I never was before. It's always like a new, and it's not because of a high. I just like the way that feeling. I like the feeling of being in a new situation with certain limitations. I don't, like I said, in basic nature, I'm an introvert. So obviously I don't like massive change and stuff, but if you talk about travel and all those things, I definitely do. But I do think that, like, all the swings and all the risk taking in poker was kind of like a tail end of puberty that lasted a few more years or something.
I think listening to you, another angle that's just come up for me is you're incredibly comfortable with vulnerability. So, like in the instance with the teacher telling you, for example, about the video, you're actually being very vulnerable in that moment by saying, no, I did it, right? The person who says, I don't want to try that because it's crap, or I don't want to go here because it's this. Again, that's fear presenting itself in a lack of vulnerability, where you're more like, no, I don't want to go to this place because I'm terrified to go to this place. Like, it's honesty, it's authenticity, it's vulnerability. And I imagine that is why you have become a very, very popular content producer and tribe builder, because of that vulnerability. Here is Lex. This is what I'm about. I'll tell you when things are going bad. I'll tell you when things are going good.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that people can get super close to me. I think you get a really good grasp of what's going on in my life and how I'm going through poker and how I experience certain things by watching and asking questions, because I'll give straight answers. Obviously, like, if it's about myself, I'll always give straight answers. If it's about other people, like if they ask me about, my certain friends of mine or about my relationship with my fiance, then all of a sudden it's her privacy, so, or their privacy. So, but I mean, I do think that people can get super close to me through the stream, and that's also the best way they can kind of figure out what it is like to be a poker pro, or what the swings are like, or what it makes you feel sometimes. Like, that's why I mean, I can get super emotional on stream. I can get super mad about poker, and then somebody's like, "Aren't you a poker pro?" And I was like, "This is what it is like, though." If
this is a poker pro. Yeah,
exactly. If somebody, like, every single poker pro gets annoyed behind the computer. I mean, there's some that aren't, but and that fits them best, or they have tilt issues if they get mad. But there's so many people that get emotional when there's nobody watching, and I just don't want to act any different when I turn the camera on. If you see me play the big game and I get snapped off by Daniel, or somebody just smashes me in a big pot, I don't say anything. I don't say anything, right? I just keep my face straight, because then it's actually a disadvantage to show emotion, because they feel like they can get to you and you're less of a threat. Online, nobody watches you. You can throw a mouse through your window. You can slam your desk in half. Nobody knows. That's why you should never rage in PokerStars chat, because then people know, and then all of a sudden it's a problem. But if nobody knows, then it's fine. And a lot of online pros do that. And I just want to give my most sincere way of kind of showcasing what it is like to be a poker pro. And I think Twitch is an amazing platform for that. I also think people deserve it. And it's also, it helps that I'm comfortable doing it, obviously. Because otherwise I'd be acting again. If I wasn't comfortable being vulnerable, and I was being vulnerable all the time, then I would again be acting. This is just the way I'm wired.
I think that, there's a couple of levels to it, isn't there? There's a Twitch stream that is complete fake and inauthentic. There's the complete polar opposite of that, which is like really super vulnerable. And then in between, there's the selective stream. So I'm going to show bits and pieces of myself, and I'm going to keep pieces private. And I think myself personally, the ability to build that tribe is at the polar end, where we're being completely open and honest. And in the middle, you can do a good stream, but I don't think you're ever going to kind of like make it to the top, because it's all about trust. It's about security. It's about relationships. Actually, what you said there about someone saying you're a professional poker player, you should get your shit together. It reminds me of when I started to really help people with relationship advice. I remember my wife Liza saying to me, "Are you sure you're cut out to be giving relationship advice? Like, our relationship's like fucking tumultuous, like, we're like up and down all the time." And I'm like, yeah, that's a relationship.
Yeah,
that is what a relationship is. So let's help people to see that this is what a relationship is like, and how we make it work. Not like, there's no, if you're ever getting relationship advice of the perfect relationship coach, or poker advice of the perfect poker player with no emotional issues or anything, there's something going on in that life that is not going to be right. Like,
no, I agree. I think it's kind of like a pipe dream. I was watching a movie just this afternoon, and it was so happy, and like people got back together, and it was so perfect and happy. And I was just thinking to myself, man, if you grow up watching this shit, then you're in for a rude awakening. I had that thought this afternoon, but yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's important for people to see. Also, if you just look at like, let's say that it is, obviously if you're going to get mad or emotional, you have to, it can be very fruitful to be that way. You can either see what part of your game is worst, what thoughts come up, and that stuff you have to work on. For me, honestly, it just fuels me to be competitive. If I used to play heads up against people, and I would start despising the people that I played against, because that would really drive me to want to beat them. I don't get all this like, oh, hey bro, tough day today. Yeah, it was great. Oh, you played so well. Yeah, me too. And like that you see people. I think it's cool if people can be like that, but that just, I have to use that emotion to play my best and to play my A game, and that involves me getting mad. But I also know that if I don't get mad for 2 days straight when it's going poorly, then all of a sudden this massive firestorm comes out eventually anyway. So for me, it's a release, and I've played poker for 16 years professionally now, and I know how to use that release. And I talk about this on stream all the time. And then people in the chat said, "Oh, I have that too. I get super angry." I was like, "No, you don't. You're actually tilting."
There's a difference.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I know it better, but I have more experience doing it. It took me a long time to fine tune it. And hell yeah, I tilted back when I was younger and I was coming up the ranks, and I would, play heads ups I shouldn't, and play longer than I should, all that stuff. But I mean, I'm to a point now where I'm mature than that, and I know how to use that emotion. But it comes with an asterisk where you can just where I have to tell my audience, this is not this can be more dangerous for you, because you actually might start playing worse. So this might not be the thing for you. But if you ask me why I get mad, it's because I need to. That's what I need in poker. Like, I mean, if I'm just sitting there clicking buttons, I'm going to do something else. I love the experience. I love being out there. in the battle, like kind of in the deep waters, and the psychological game behind it. If I'm just clicking buttons and I don't register anything, it's just, I can't even imagine. I would have quit a long time ago.
It reminds me of that top footballer who's got that little bit of naughtiness in him, and then in the press they'll be like, oh, if he could just stamp that bit of naughtiness out of him, and then the professionals, pundits will be like, no, you knock that little bit of naughtiness out of him, and you lose what he is as a competitor.
Yeah, I think exactly.
It's time to remind you folks that if it wasn't for the support of our gracious host, Run It Once Poker, you would not be listening to the very candid trials and tribulations of Lex Veldhuis. So it's time to give them a shout out. Rio Poker is an online poker room created by players for players. And if that appeals to you, then head to once.run/hero play today, and you can pick up a 100% bonus up to a ceiling of €600. Now, there are two elements to this deposit bonus that make me want to start playing online poker, open a Twitch stream, raise it up to like 250,000 followers, and use that money to open a Rio account. First, it never expires as long as you play one hand every 30 days. And second, all of your deposits during your first 30 days count towards the bonus. So remember that URL again, folks. It's once.run/hero play. Now, back to Lex Veldhuis. There's a moment in everybody's movie called the Inciting Incident. So in Rocky, for example, when Apollo Creed is like leafing through to find a bomb that he's going to just fight in between fights, and comes across Rocky's picture, says, come on, let's give this bomb a go, right? And in that moment, like the person watching the movie is like, okay, this is what the movie's about, right? The end scene is going to be Rocky taking on Apollo, and is Rocky going to win? So I want to break down your Inciting Incident into two parts, poker and Twitch. So in poker first, can you describe the moment, your Inciting Incident, where if we was watching, we would be going, oh, I wonder if Lex is going to make it as a professional poker player or not. This is what his life's all about. When was that moment for you?
Do you mean like as in like a crossroads? You can go two directions now, or? Yeah,
in effect, yeah. So we start looking at it and going, okay, Lex really is going to give it a go to be a professional poker player here.
I mean, if I have one massive aha moment in poker for me where I felt like, okay, I got this. And that really came with, I had this structure, and I was just talking to one of my best friends who got me into poker. He's the co-founder and co-CEO of Team Liquid. And I met him through StarCraft, and we both started playing, and we lived together during our student years, so to say, even though he did actually finish uni. And we just talked a lot, and it was pretty much like we played 10, 25 cents, and you would raise 4 times the big blind pre-flop. And if I'm sorry, 25, 50 cents. If I missed, I would bet $2.50. If I hit, I would bet $2. And this is the way, and it worked, and we did it. And I started betting all my misses. And at a certain point, I was telling myself, I was like, if they fold this often when I bet 2.5, why does it matter if I have ace king or 9-3 suited? And this is when I just started thinking, okay, I'm just going to play anything that even looks half pretty. And I pretty much started playing 2.5 times more hands, betting every single flop. Also, after that, experimenting with betting turns, and I thought to myself, every time somebody bets, it's usually a strong hand. I mean, there was very little like bluffing or like all this technical stuff back then. 3 streets was a lot of strength. It's like, wow, this guy is like a set at least or something, or a top 2 pair. I thought to myself, okay, cool. I'm just going to raise. I'm going to bet flops. And if the board works out, I'm going to bet all in. And that moment, I started flying through the stakes. I really went from being a regular at 200 NL to playing 510 within a few months. And I was open sitting heads ups because obviously I started playing a lot of marginal hands, and that got me a lot of experience. And that's really good for playing heads up. So I was really good in the marginal situations. I was open sitting to start tables. It went so fast from that moment. And that moment, that was such a clear I remember to this day, I was at Victor's house and I was sitting and I just thought to myself, 9-4 suited, why not? Let's try. And they folded and they folded and they folded. And I remember I played 11 hours that session, and that was a very long session for me to play online. I played 11 hours and I just bet everything. That for me was massive. That was the moment, 100%.
Was there anything that had to fall by the wayside as a result of your decision to play poker professionally, or was the road clear and you just filled it with poker?
No, it was very tough because at first everybody thought, the obvious things like gambling, all that stuff. And I felt I carried a lot of weight. I think it's also coming back to my past, of like my parents wanting me to do well in school. So obviously that was very important for them. I got into university, pretty much didn't go from the start because I wanted to play poker. There was actually a choice I had once. I was deep in the the 33 rebuy, I believe, and it had 1500 first and 900 second. And I had an exam, like a full-on exam, but I was last 20 in that tournament. And at that moment, I thought, this is what I want to do. I'm just going to finish this tournament. Like, I have no interest in that study anyway. So that's a very important moment for me earlier on that really made me decide, okay, this is when I truly start making sacrifices, apparently, when you start sacrificing real life shit. And that's something that's kind of kept up that whole time. I really felt like, I think it's very comparable to, trying to make it in tennis or something. You have to sacrifice so much. So many birthdays where there was really good games running online, or Sundays. Sundays, Sunday poker. I've never been to anything that friends did on a Sunday. I would just not take days off. To the point where it was unhealthy and not balanced, but that was the only way I felt it was doable. And it was such a clear decision for me. It was just like, why aren't you picking up your phone? Because I'm playing. Yeah, why can't you just pick up the phone? No, because I need to focus. What are we going to do tonight? I'm playing poker. I would just play. And I just wanted to really, really, really make it in that. And I felt like, okay, I feel like the timing is right. I have a talent in something that I can make a lot of money in. So it is very much like trying to be a pro athlete, you just have to put in the work. And you don't, like, how many of your friends that are in college or something trying to make it in whatever, baseball, tennis, or football or anything, how many of them show up to a lot of birthday parties? Not a whole lot, It's like more exception than rule when they're there. So I think in terms of that, I've made a lot of sacrifices, and but I really wanted to be free and not have any responsibilities either. I paid my mom and dad all the money back that they invested in university. So I just said, like, I'm playing poker, and they were like, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you crazy? You can't do this. You have to go to school. And I was like, no, here's back all the money that you paid. This is my decision now. I'm taking responsibility for it. I'm 20 years old. You don't really have a say over it because you don't have a financial stake. I pay my own rent, all that stuff. And I do think that was pretty powerful for them, where they were like, oh, at least you're not trying to get it from both sides,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's massive. And like nobody in the Netherlands was playing poker, nobody did it. It got really big, but nobody was doing it. So it's, and my environment as well, people were just, what are you doing? Why are you sitting behind your computer all the time? And this is when my friends were in university, and, they wanted to go out and I wanted to drink. So obviously sometimes I would join, but 9 out of 10 times I wouldn't. And they just didn't get it. They honestly thought I was just addicted to, like, video games. Only when I started traveling to EPTs and stuff, it became real for them. And then I deal with poker stars, and all of a sudden I'm making a lot of money. And, I really involved all my friends in that. Like, we would go out on trips. I would bring them to EPTs, and, we would go on crazy. We just go into town and we buy all the video games. I was like, if any game you want to play in the next 3 days at any time, buy it. Let's just buy all of it. And we just, with 4 or 5 friends, we just play video games for 3 days straight. So we had amazing experiences, but it doesn't come easy when you want to put in a lot of work in something.
Yeah, I want to ask you on that balance question, because there's a bit of a paradox there in as much as if you do any studying, kind of like before we came on the stream, we were just talking, when we off air, and about the pandemic, and I was saying about my 79-year-old dad, like, really struggling at the moment. And I said to Liza yesterday morning, none of his memories will matter now. All that matters now is how he feels in pain and suffering, right? His life won't matter. It'll just be about now. And then I started thinking to myself, like, he's running around taking pills and drinking fluids and concoctions and doing exercises, and you're like, no, that's what your life should have been like. So when you get to this point, you're not struggling. But when you look back at that, at your 80s and your 90s, and there's this great book called Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware, and they talk about the things that they wish they did more of or less of. Invariably, working less is one of the things that they come up with. Spending more time with friends, being more connected, and spending more time with family. Yet when you're in the mix of it, when you're in your teens or your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, and you want to be successful, you want to make something of yourself, you look around you and you see all these top athletes that really put in the grind, and you think, I have to do this, otherwise I'm never going to be successful. Can you imagine trying to be a top high-stakes poker player right now without sacrifice, right? And then, so what do you think right now in your life about that balance between probably going to get at 80, 90, maybe think you want to do things differently, and actually driving and pushing yourself to make a difference? Where do you land on that now?
Oh, it's massive for me, because now I just realized that I always looked at success or targets in the short term. What do I need to do? What do I need to do now to be better in a month? But I realize now that the true question is, what is my plan now to be where I want to be in 10 years? And I mean, even with streaming, like I had to learn that the hard way. So that's not something that I've learned, 10 years ago, even. I've always thought you have to put in the hours, right? Like I'm 100% sure that I played 80 hours that I played 80 hours a week of poker for 6-7 years straight, 100% that I did that average. And then I did it with streaming, and I would just play, stream. I remember we went to me and my fiance went to Rome for 4 or 5 days. We had the best time, and I come back and my numbers were a bit struggling, and I wouldn't get past 500 viewers very often, and I felt like it took a hit. And I told her, like, we're never going on vacation again while I'm doing this. And she just looked at me. She's like, are you out of your mind, But she taught me so much about balance and things that are important. And I always kind of thought that I'm that guy, right, that doesn't show up a lot and that makes sacrifice for something, and nobody really understands what I do. And the more time I put in it, the more successful I am, and this is my time that I need to use to shine, kind of. But then I had this big thing where I just collapsed, and I was on the floor. I was on the street in San Jose during TwitchCon, and I was just laying on the street, and I had heart issues, and doctor was telling me, like, this is not sustainable. You have to rethink some things. And right before that, I had stress attacks, and I would randomly start crying because of stress. And I would, me and Mirta, we had dinner. We had like a late lunch, whatever. We had a late lunch. We were going to go to the movies. We had a spare 45 minutes, and Mirta has a random idea. Says, oh, hey, look, let's get a chair massage there. And we go into the place and we get a chair massage, and I have a full-blown panic attack where I need to leave the chair, and I get up and I push people aside and I go outside, and Mirta's like, are you okay? She knew I was dealing with stress and stuff. She's like, are you okay? And I randomly start fucking crying, and I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And she's like, it's okay, baby. And I was like, and I was gone. I was like, oh my God, I feel so empty, now. And that was just a ball that was rolling and rolling and rolling. And every time you take a step back, your body kind of, the immediate symptoms go away, and you think, oh, cool, I'm good again, time to go. And you just keep going forward again. And then it just popped like a balloon, and it's on the street. And I was like, okay, this needs some change, I just really need change. And I mean, this is 2 years ago, and I feel like I've learned to work much more efficiently, much better. I feel like all my personal relationships are better. I still work 50 to 60 hours a week, but I see my family. I have lots of quality time with Mirta. I see my friends. I just try to do it really efficiently out of that. And if I need a week, I take a week. And I never used to do that. It's like, okay, fine. I'm going to go, we're going to go to Australia earlier this year. We're going to go to Australia for 3 weeks. And that's where I'm going to be. And I get messages on social media every day where people are like, where the fuck are you? And you should be streaming. And I'm never watching again. Like every single day I get it. And it's just like, okay, then don't watch, support me as a person as well as somebody that you watch a lot. And I mean, I have to give credit because 95% of my audience is just super empowering there, and it's okay, Lex. We'll be there. You do you. Like, we just don't want this to end within half a year or something. And now the only thing I'm thinking about is, okay, how do I fix the long term? How do I still stream in 6-7 years? And it used to just be, I'm 100% sure that 3-4 years ago I was just thinking, okay, streamer have an expiration date of 2-3 years. I need to get the max out of it because that's usually when everybody is done. I mean, you see it with almost all the big streamers, also in poker. There's exceptions, like guys like Ninja and stuff that have been streaming for 8-9 years, or Lyric. But if you look at a lot of the poker guys, Jason Somerville was there 3-4 years, 3 years. Tonka was there 2-3 years. Jamie Staples was off for a long time after 2-3 years. It happens to so many of them, and it's not to fire shots because it just shows what how, like, streaming is insanely tough. It just have every single minute of that session, 8-9 hours a day, have a camera on you. And if I do this, people say I'm picking my nose. If I'm scratching my ears, people say stop picking your ears. It's so crazy, like the scrutiny that you're under, and that creates stress and it creates expectation. And I love that because it's another one of those situations where I love being in. I really like that. I like being in a safe environment in my own home and doing that. But it's still very tiring. But I really feel like with the changes, and I think when I collapsed, I was heading that same way where I just wouldn't be able to sustain, and I wouldn't be able to keep that up. But I feel like the changes I've made now make me able to do this 6, 7, 8, 9 more years. I really don't know why not. I stopped traveling pretty much, which means I'm just home. It's all stable. It's all sound. I'm having a new studio built. I'm investing a ton of money to have like a studio exactly the way I like it, so that if I sit down, it's temperature controlled. It's everything that I need. Sound is perfect. Everything, backup with PCs, everything. Just really look at it a professional way. And if I have a big series coming, I take a week off. After a big series, I take 10 days off. You know what? And if I don't feel good after 10 days, it's another week. Because that means that I can go hard the rest of the year, And if I show up then and say, oh, I can't do this, or if I show up and I'm like, well, here I am again, let's go hard. And then all of a sudden, now I might need 2 months, So I think that if I would have known this back in the day, then I would have been a lot more successful in poker, but also more successful outside of poker. But I also, you have to be realistic about these things, It's not, that's experience. That's what fucking life experience is. I'm already, like, some people find out when they're 55. I've worked too much. Oh my fucking God. This, I haven't seen my daughter, or all that stuff. And I feel like I've learned that lesson so early on. And that's one of the things that I absolutely fucking love about poker is you get into these murky, deep waters, and it creates this acceleration in life experience that you have. And I feel like the spot where I am right now, I feel like I have like a working life of experience behind me, and I still have the time to do like 70% of it right,
I can, I remember when reading about you collapsing and going through those issues, and, I don't stream, but I'm pretty sedentary. I have to force myself to move every 90 minutes because of just, the job that I do. Even this now, we're sat down, aren't we? We're not moving around. So I can understand the physicality aspects of how you could go from being, top shape to kind of like fizzling out a little bit, and that affecting your heart and stuff. But do you mind sharing what was going on psychologically? So where was the stress coming from? What were the things that were getting on top of you? Well, you probably might not even know they were getting on top of you until they did get on top of you.
I think it's just a buildup of like having this sense of responsibility to my audience. Like, I'm all about schedules, right? Like, I think one of the big things with me and my audience is if I say I'm there, I'm there. And I am there. I mean, let's say like I'm watching UFC and it runs an hour longer, then I might postpone the stream and I'll tweet about it or something. But I sincerely think that 99 out of 100 streams that I've done, if I say I'm there at 8:39 is when the countdown starts. So but this also creates this dynamic with your audience where it becomes an expectation, and I really want to stick to that schedule, and I know consistency does well. So I think I just had this really big thing that was growing, in terms of claim on my time, which is what ended up being one of the biggest issues with my stress related stuff. So also I wanted to do more and more. I felt like I needed to expand everywhere. Like I wanted to become the biggest on YouTube while creating content for there and repurposing streaming content. And I wanted to do more Instagram, and I wanted to do a project where I would, just all these random projects that I was thinking about. And I wanted this. I ticked all these boxes, what I thought was good ideas. And then it was actually just kind of creeping up on me. And on top of that, just hours. It's not sustainable to work that many hours. I mean, back then I was doing like 80 hours a week. And
so you're not sleeping well either then?
Exactly. Yeah. You would wake up, you lay in bed and you're just looking at the ceiling, and then you're okay. And then you fall asleep, and then you wake up at 6 and your brain just starts going off and you can't fall back asleep again. And I would wake up early to fix PC trouble instead of taking a day off. I wake up at 5 a.m. to have like computer issues looked at so I could start streaming at 9. And if somebody was on the, like what we're doing right now, like I very rarely do meetings or interviews or anything in the evening. And back then I would do them every day. Every day I would have something, and a brainstorm session about some fucking project that doesn't matter. And all these things were kind of building up. And then on top of that, this is when me and my fiance decided to travel for a year. And while you may think that traveling is relaxing, if you do it with a shitty internet connection and having to sort out logistics, and also I feel a responsibility to my fiance to do fun stuff. We had a lot of friends over. We lived with Jamie and his family and his girlfriend, his brothers, and so there was a lot of social things everybody was doing, and Mirta had tons of fun, and we'd have friends from Holland over, but still feeling like, oh shit, okay, now we're having off time, and now we're going to go look at this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to go to this beach. And you have all these impressions, right? Traveling can be exhausting as fuck if you're experiencing new things. You don't know the culture. I mean, remember as well, right? Like I'm an introvert, and I'm just out all day, like talking to people in a foreign language and going out. And yes, you're laying on the beach, but you're also checking your phone. And then you go home and you have to stream, and the internet drops, and you have to call somebody, which I obviously don't like because of my personality. I don't like calling for an issue with internet or something. So all these things happen, and this builds up and builds up and builds up. And then we moved to Panama, and the infrastructure was even more shit. And then at a certain point, Mirta sat me down. She's like, I want to, not streaming today, I want to have dinner. Okay. And I knew it was kind of serious or something, but like, and she's like, okay, listen. And she's like, you're being a fucking moron. She's like, you're missing the bigger picture. And I go off like this and that, but this is an opportunity, and we can really do a lot of stuff to financially secure ourselves. And this, she's like, yes, but even from a working perspective, you're completely missing the big picture. You're not seeing it. You're different. You're snappy. Ask some people how it is to watch your stream now, because I'm not enjoying it when I hear it downstairs. And she was so honest with me, and she had such a good take on it. And I talked to Ruthann, who's been my main mod for forever. And she said, to be honest, like it's not really fun to be in your stream right now because you're snapping a lot. We don't give a shit if you play this many tables, or if you register an extra tournament, or if you play all the 530s or all that stuff. She's like, we just want to have fun. And it's kind of like you feel this need to prove yourself. So I was like, whoa, okay. And I linked it back with Mirta. But the messed up thing about like the stress cycles is like what we talked about earlier, what we mentioned, is when you recognize this and you change some things, played a little bit less tables, played less high stakes tournaments, didn't re-enter as much because I felt like I needed to, and you don't register a few tournaments at the end. Now all of a sudden you feel some relief, and you're like, cool, we fixed it, but if you keep on working those hours and take some of those meetings and still fill it out in a different way, you go from having psychological effects or symptoms, psychological stress symptoms from, like when you walk by the door and you bump your elbow into it and you just want to punch a hole in the door, like that, those sort of symptoms. You stub your toe and you just scream and you just throw your shit through the room, and it's like that. It's like you're tense. You're just you're just tense like the knocked arrow or something. And that goes away because your body thinks, oh, we're still in survival mode, we need to keep going. So, and then that's when in the end you get physical symptoms, and that's the heart collapse, and those are the stress issues where your body just stops. Just like, okay, enough, I can't do it anymore. So psychologically, it just was, I just needed to get humbled big time. First it was all psychological symptoms, and it just turned into like the worst physical symptoms of being very close to just, where it just snaps and now you're in bed for a year.
I mean, you don't get a second chance when that happens. It's good that you have a lot of people around you that are going to speak the truth to you. I mean,
yeah.
I remember I just recently identified as a workaholic, and doing some work on that, I realized a truth that I was so ashamed to admit, but I did it anyway, was I realized that I threw myself into work because it wasn't that I enjoyed it more than life, but it was easier than life. So it was easier to work than to play with my kid. It was easier to work than cuddle up with my wife and have conversation with her. And then it was like, fuck, is there something wrong with me? And having to accept that, no, Lee, that's okay. Being a dad is tough. Being a husband is tough. You're not always going to like your wife. You're not always going to like your kid. And understanding that it comes from my childhood and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, just even like, not even now, just saying that to you now, talking to you, I feel like oxygen has filled my entire body. Like it tingles and I feel a lot more relaxed. Just listening to you share, like, listeners, by the way, what Lex is talking about right now, he's giving you a gift. Like, this is like the ultimate gift of vulnerability. It's like, this is what it means to be human. We all hide this shit, but this is out there. Look, this is what it's like to be human. So we can be like, oh, I can feel like that. I can feel like that. I can learn from that. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's my pleasure. Honestly, I think it's important because, I say this on stream too, and I've talked about these stress issues and the way I go through it. I think it is important to say like, oh, you don't sleep, or, oh, I just randomly started crying, because, it is what it is. It has nothing to do with anything. That's just what happened. And I think that why it happened is super logical if you think back on it. And I mean, there's people that might randomly have emotional moments that they don't know where, and they're working a lot. And, it could be super dangerous for them if they don't have that kind of wake-up call. Or at least, I mean, I honestly feel in the end I was kind of lucky that I got like the worst symptoms in the end without having that finger snap moment where I was just done. So, I kind of fell down right at the exact moment when it wasn't too late. So I think it's just super important to make it a discussable topic,
Like definitely.
Like health, stress, mental issues is just super important to talk about.
If you want to be the best, then it's not a bad strategy to learn from the best. And this is where Run It Once training has your back. Sign up today and you will receive 2 new training videos daily from some of the best poker players and coaches in the world, including 3 elite videos. And one of them is going to come from a man who puts together a pretty mean live stream himself, Mr. Philip Galfon. If you want to take part in Run It Once training, then the link you're looking for is once.run/hero learn. Right back to Lex Veldhuis. You talked about the inciting incident that led to poker. So what is the inciting incident that led to where you are today as a streaming giant?
It's funny because the inciting moments for streaming, I mean, streaming, it started out, it's kind of weird. Like there was no poker on Twitch yet. And I was watching nonstop Dota, StarCraft, all these streams on Twitch, like just watching them constantly. My Twitch account's from 2009. I started streaming in 2016. So I knew I watched all the streamers. I watched them all day. I was grinding, and I would have, Dota streamers up on the side. And I said to PokerStars, like, I really think this could be massive, and they said, okay. And I said, can I do a test stream? So they got some people, some higher ups together, and they looked at it and they're like, we don't know what the fuck it is, but you have our blessing. But at the time, it just didn't make any sense for me financially, professionally. I just thought this is too big of a leap, I felt like, oh, the games are still really good. I was really in love with PLO back then. And I was just like, I I was learning that game and I didn't really want to do it at the same time. But then, streamers started appearing, and Jamie and Jason Somerville, and I really thought that I could bring something different to the table than what they were doing, and kind of, just because I was a different character, right? I think it's really good to have a multitude of characters and a lot of diversity, so a lot of people have something to look at, which is just good for any kind of branch or directory, if people are watching something. One of the biggest moments for me was when I was talking to the team at PokerStars, who did a lot with Twitch and stuff, and in Team Online, and they said, I was talking, I was hesitant, and I didn't know, and I was kind of at a crossroads, and then I said, okay, listen, obviously there's certain activities and stuff you do within a contract, and they'd like you to play. Obviously, it's not, when you're in Team Online, it's not like see you in 3 months, that sort of thing. So they said to me, take the first 3 months off the year or 2 months off the year off. Do whatever you want. Do anything you want. We don't care. We'll give you every space. You'll get your contract, whatever. Just if you're interested in streaming, all we ask is after those 2 months, do your first stream. And that gave me so much space and kind of time to think about what I wanted the stream to be. And I had that in my head already, because I was just kind of like, I feel like streaming needs to be, you just turn on a camera and you are, and that's it. And if 400 people are going to watch, that's fantastic. If 3,000 people are going to watch, that's even better. But stay true to yourself. And I think that that's the only way to get through it, I thought. And that's the only content I want to put out. I just wanted it to be real, and then we'll see if people will watch it or not. But that really gave me so much space and time to really kickstart it. So that was super important for me. And then a second moment that's really important is that collapsing and kind of restructuring the whole thing after, and learning to take time off. And I mean, my numbers are bigger than they've ever been, and it's just by just reorganizing. Like I said, I'm still working a shit ton, but it's just in a different way, and it feels so much more relaxed now. I also get so fucking tilted when people, like, sometimes you'll see people that either talk about streaming but don't really follow the scene, or sometimes it's other streamers that are taking super subtle shots at me without the audience knowing, when people will say like, yeah, Lex has been slowing down too, and he's taking some more time off, and he's dealing with some stress and anxiety issues. And I'm so proud of how I dealt with those issues and what I did to overcome those, and how I restructured, and I'm like, I'm streaming 200 hours a month. Like, who's slowing down? Who's doing anything? I get so annoyed when people say that. And sometimes it's just people that, just want to say that on their own platform and stuff. It's super frustrating. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But,
yeah, I don't know. I know nothing about Twitch. I was just thinking to myself, like, I've been reading this book called Thinker Toys. It's about creative thinking. And I also did a training course with Seth Godin called the Marketing Seminar. I've actually done it twice or maybe 3 times. And he always he has this axis, and he says, pick 4 points in your kind of industry. So like in streaming, it might be consistency and lack of consistency on either end. And then it could be authenticity, inauthenticity. And then it's like, right, stick your Jason Somervilles and your Jamie Staples and your Tonkers and whoever else, and stick them where they belong in this matrix. And then it's like where's the gap, right? Where's the gap? That is your niche audience, because there's a gap there. And it could be authenticity and, not enough time. So it could end up being that you end up being truly authentic, but just stream that you're doing is bucking the trend. You are exclusive. It is difficult to get a Lex stream. You're not streaming all the time. It'd be really interesting to see how that would work,
Yeah, it is. I mean, but in the end, if you look at I think the people that do best over time are the people that are most consistent. If you look at, Finton and Spraggy, they're just always there. I mean, they've grinded up from 1 viewer streaming a ton, and they're still there. They're just streaming. I mean, they stream more than I do. It's just they're always there, and I think that I do think that consistency and being there a lot is important for people to commit to you. I think it's also very easy for people to find a different home. Yeah, it's all about, people like patterns, people like the same kind of thing. It's, I always think of it, there's a lot of people that sit behind a computer all day that like structure. that like having that same kind of pattern. I go through it myself, and I think I'm a very typical online a lot person. And people, I love when I warm up, I love clicking Twitch open the half an hour before my stream, and I watch certain Dota streamers. That's always what I do. And they can be there 5 days in a row, and the 6th day I'm like, okay, he's not there. The 7th day I'm like, okay, what the fuck? You know, it's like, where is it? And then I start watching somebody else, and then I realize all of a sudden I've been watching this different person for 2 weeks, because that becomes my new thing. And I think it works the same with poker. And I think that's why Fintan and Spraggy do so well and have gone up the ranks, because they're just there. You know, you can depend on them, and they're just there. So, and I think for me, it's kind of the same thing. It's like people know that I'll be there, and people genuinely believe that I'm committed to be there in 4 years. So it feels safe trusting me in that regard.
You make a good point. It reminds me of podcasts a little bit. Like, I always listen to the Sam Harris podcast, and during the whole Black Lives Matter thing, he went off the radar, because I know that he's not into identity politics, and I thought to myself, he's really thinking about what to say now, because he knows whatever he says, he's going to get fucking murdered, right? So like, he just went off. So I'm like, where is he? I need to listen to a podcast. Like, I can't run. You go like this. I cannot run anymore without a podcast. Like, I cannot take a shit without a podcast. So you start listening to someone else, and if that someone else is really good, you only have a certain amount of time. So I totally get it. You've been super successful in poker. You've been super successful on Twitch. Been super successful in life. Who have been the most influential mentors that have helped you collectively to improve throughout your life?
I would say that 2 people stand out for me in terms of talking a lot to them and really, really taking to heart. And in the mentor role, first I would honestly say that it's my fiance, because but that's not exactly what you mean. You understand what I mean? It's like, that's that team thing, you know, that's like in a relationship and kind of like a symbiosis. She complements me so well, and she backs me up in a way where I feel comfortable dealing with my weaknesses. You know what I mean? So that goes without saying. It just feels weird without mentioning her, because my life was kind of a mess before.
Yeah, if you were taking the ring to Mount Doom, she would be in your fellowship. It doesn't matter why she's there, right?
Like, she'd push me in the lava for sure. No, but there's one friend of mine, is, I mentioned him earlier, Victor Gosens. He goes online by Liquid Nazgul, from Team Liquid. He's been one of my best friends, and he's just been so valuable with his advice, and he has such a good look on things where it's so balanced, and you know, he always holds me accountable to stuff. So I don't know, he really stands out to me, where somebody that I would call, like, okay, I have a question, you know, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? So I would say that, like, it started, and also within poker, my early years and everything, but also just kind of like about morals, and especially because I used to be quite explosive and erratic, and we'd be so different in that area, but he kind of pulled me back towards the middle a little bit. And I think that a lot of reasons why it worked out, that he has a lot to do with those. And also, I would say Fatima Moreira de Mello. She's like a sister to me. She's just super smart and very wise, but also really emotionally developed. And, you know, all she's about is like contact with people and talking to people, and she really gets to know people. Like, she's super well loved on the poker tour as well, because when she sits down next to you in a tournament, at the end of the day, you know that you've been heard and you've had a conversation in a very relaxing way. You know, if people don't want to talk, they don't want to talk, and that's fine. But like, the amount of people that she knows stuff about, that she would just be like, hey, how did that go? How is that going? And in the hallway would really walk up to be like, hey, Fatima, how you been? How you doing? It's like, she's just one of the warmest people I've met in my life. And just, I think that a lot of in like maturity, also professional maturity, and also talking about relationships and communication within work, and also just, you know, within relationships and everything, she's been super valuable to me. Like,
what I like about Fatima is you know, as from a male point of view, it's easy for me and you to talk about taboo shit, but it's less easier to talk to a woman about woman taboo shit that you want to know more of. Like I remember reading a book called Woman by Natalie Angier, and it taught me all about women, like how their breasts work, why they have periods, all this kind of stuff. Like, and I realized I knew more about the female body reading this book than I knew about my own body because I'd never read anything. But someone like Fatima, you can sit down with her and you can talk to her about how she feels and toss her a question about something that's going on from in your relationship, and she can give you the female point of view because she will talk about anything. And it's that raw authenticity and trust that generates that respect that we've been talking about throughout this call, right?
Yeah, I think that a lot of time it's very hard if you have a really good relationship with somebody from the sex that you're attracted to. It's really hard for both people to not want anything else from that relationship, you know. I think, I mean, it just goes that there's just I've read some really cool studies about that also, you know, with where they did like testing by asking people and stuff. It's just, in the end, a lot, like either one of the party would like something more to evolve, you know. And I think what's so special about my bond with Fatima is that it's friendship and it's brother sister, and both of us know that, and both of us want it to be that way. So she can talk about love life without me trying to steer it a certain way, you know, because I would rather have her be single or some shit. The other way around too. We can be so candid and open, and also ask about the other sex, you know, what is that like? What is it like for you here as a woman? Or she would ask me, like, you know, about being a man in certain situations and all this stuff, and just have like 100% answer that you can trust and respect, because I respect her opinion on stuff. Is just super valuable. It also taught me a lot about poker, but also about relationships and, you know, just going through relationships and women and all that stuff.
Now, you also read. I know you read. You put me onto Pierce Brown's Red Rising series, which just blew my fucking mind. I've actually got my little niece onto them as well. Like she's into them at the moment. And I can look at a guy like that, for example, in my life, and like I find him very inspirational because he challenges me creatively, like the way that he always, like, his cliffhanger expertise, for example, is like something that I can interweave into my life, right? And similarly in streaming, I guess you can learn a great deal from him. So what mentors have sprung out the pages of books for you, Lex?
That's hard because I don't read that much nonfiction. I love to just kind of reading is very meditative for me. It kind of takes me away thinking about something else, and that makes me realize that my normal kind of thought process stops, you know. My mind's very fluttery, it's always jumping. That's why meditation is very beneficial for me, and I think for a lot of people with ADD, or I think introverts or something in general, you know. I think that is super useful to kind of have more control about snowballing in your head or where your thoughts are leading you to. But reading is just amazing to me. I love reading like 5-book series about dragons and fucking vampires and dwarves and everything. It just really takes me out of normal life. And the less affinity, I don't know if that's the word to use, affinity it has with regular life or something, or the less you can compare it to regular life, the better, because it just kind of takes me out and it becomes more of like a hobby to me.
It's an escape. It's like a way for you to escape from real life. I mean, okay, so let's go back to the Fellowship of the Ring. You know, the great thing about that trilogy, whether you read it or watch it, and you can include the Hobbit series in that, is they have to overcome so many obstacles, right? And we've touched upon your all is lost moment, and we touched upon some of your obstacles. Is there anything we've missed? What were the primary obstacles in becoming a professional poker player and becoming a success in Twitch and in life that we might not have touched upon, or do you think we've covered them all?
I think we covered on the most important ones, because like for me it's just kind of, it's also knowing when to stop. That for me, I'm super intense. I'm insanely tunnel vision. Like, it's when I was playing online a lot and I was spending a lot of time in Vegas, and then and you had guys that had like 2,000 bitcoins and stuff, and this is when they were worth $1, and they were telling me like, oh, you should buy Bitcoin, you do this, but how everybody has some sort of bad beat on Bitcoin or something, or they know somebody. That's something that doesn't even bother me, because I know I'm just not that kind of person that dives into two different things. So I'm super tunnel vision about something, and I can go really hardcore if I really truly like something, but that's also a trap. And I think kind of through work on streaming and through time planning better and having more balance, I kind of figured it out now. So I would definitely say that's my biggest obstacle. I also think that I really think that ADD was a big one for me, where I didn't know that like sleeping patterns are important and eating healthy. I mean, I pretty much put myself in a state of ketosis every day. I would wake up, smoke 2 cigarettes, not being hungry. I would start playing, and I would just whatever. I would smoke all session. Not that it matters truly, but um, and then I would just play for 20 hours, and I would eat at the end of it, and that would make me tired. And I had this like very weird, fucked up dynamic with my body, where I knew exactly how hard I could push myself. And I played so many 50, 60-hour sessions. It's crazy, crazy, just because I knew how to figure out going into ketosis and stopping my body from being tired because I wasn't eating. And it's so unhealthy. Like, it's ridiculous when I think back on it. And all I needed was a structure. All I needed was to go running, wake up at a certain time. But I was just kind of, self-medicating. I'm not talking about, just using drugs or something. I've tried Adderall and all that stuff, and I really grown to hate all of it. So also back then, I just immediately saw, okay, that's one of the things where I thought, okay, this is just a short-term thing, but this is just gonna fuck you up. So that wasn't really an issue. It's just like more like self-medicating by, I think I was playing at night all the time till 7 a.m. until I was exhausted, because when you're at night, there's no people calling you. There's no business hours on which you should go to the city hall to fix your permit to park, which I wasn't doing. All that stuff that I was kind of escaping from, all under the guise of I'm just working a lot and this is the best time to work. Um, but like I said, I don't really regret any of that stuff, because I think it's a very natural trap for something I was doing, and at least I was putting my work into and time into something that led to something and that was constructive, that had a goal, and it gave me a lot of experiences. And like I said earlier, I really feel like all these traps I walked into, I think are traps that people can walk into when they're 50, 60, 70. The financial struggles, the risk, knowing what risk does, taking responsibility for things. Man, poker is amazing when you think about what it can teach you. If you,
When you were talking there, it reminded me a little bit of the Triton poker series. Well, not just Triton, but because we both pop up on there. So, but before then, whenever I would go on the World Poker Tour or EPT, and I don't drink, obviously, they would always be trying to drag me to these parties and to say that it was really important that I go to these parties. And people would be wanting to talk to me all the time because, people are friendly. But I would be just so fucking busy, and I'd be working. And everyone would be saying, well, look at him, he's really miserable because all he's doing is working. Whereas like, no, you should be fucking working. Stop talking to me like we're here to work, right? I don't want to go to the fucking party, because for me, I think parties are just nonsense. I don't think they're connected places at all. I think they're places of disconnection. So that's where I am. But now when I fast forward myself to the Triton tour, when I go on a Triton tour, I want to work hard and I want to produce a great product and I want to have a few deep, meaningful conversations. But other than that, I don't really like having people around me. And then I look at you and you're on that stream for like 15 to 20 hours. And I think that probably suits him pretty perfectly because he can be around people without being around people and he's doing 100%. His job.
100%. It's my own little bubble. And I really don't like branching out in things too much. Like, I think, especially if people are around me in day to day or they see my stream, like, I don't like talking in front of audiences live. I hate doing it at Lex Live. Like, I love this. I love sitting down with people, and if we can be a group of 20 people, I love sitting down with people and saying, hey, where are you from? What do you watch the stream? Like, just make connections, but on a private level. I don't like to be the guy that stands in front of a room and tells a story. And, it's super weird when you look at my job, but it's, if announcement needs to be made, oh, we're going to announce, like, even something fun, I knew we're going to give away a platinum pass or something. I'm just standing there and I see all these faces of people that watch my stream that I've made, that I know their story and they know mine, and they've seen me through highs and lows. And I see this love in their eyes, right? They're just like, what do you have to tell to us, Lex? Like, what's going on? And I just see like all these people like encouraging, and they're nodding. And I think that even now hearing this, like most of them don't know. I mean, I've talked about it sometimes, and the only thing I'm thinking is like, am I going to pass out? Am I going to throw up? Is this why am I shaking? Why is this, I really hate being in that situation. I cannot stand it. It's like, I don't feel comfortable doing on camera TV when it's live. When it's my own thing and you can go wrong, and I don't feel like I need an escape, right? But when I'm in a live production, I'm wearing a suit and I have production in my ear and there's a lot going on and it's an important show and all that stuff, I feel super uncomfortable and I feel super trapped. But in the end, I like doing it, but it's, I like the product that comes out of it, and I like broadcasting, but it's such a different type of broadcasting. When I'm here, all I need to do is take 2 steps left and I'm in my own world, and that makes it so comfortable for me. It's not I'm not on a set, I'm not mic'd up, and I can just 3 steps that way and I'm out the room, and that makes it so much more comfortable for me. And I love the interaction that I have with people, but it's really, I forget that the camera is there, when I do it, and it's just what it is, and try to stay true to myself and what I believe in and how I want to act, because just the way I am. But it's weird because it's kind of a paradox if you think about like what I do and how I feel about being the center of attention and in crowds and stuff. It's so crazy that like through streaming, you can have a deep personal connection with 6,000 people at the same time without it feeling like a mass, like a massive amount of people or like a herd or something, or being the center of attention. I think it's so cool. I think it's the perfect platform for people that are more introverted to still broadcast a talent or something.
Yeah, I had a moment the other day, actually. I run these twice weekly online support groups for people suffering from alcohol addiction. Yeah. And we get a lot of people who are struggling with alcohol addiction that say they have to go to the pub, right, or the club to see their friends, and therefore put themselves into that risk category of being triggered to drink. They have to, because socialization is really important to them, right? But then when we're on these online twice weekly group meetings, we have so much fun. We laugh, we cry, we talk about taboo stuff and deep stuff, we share, we're vulnerable. And then we leave. We're on a little bit of a high, because I've asked them. We're on a little bit of a high. We've got this kind of neurochemical buzz going through us, and we're a little bit happy. We might have a little bit of a low down, but we're a little bit happy. And then it got me thinking, the gradations between physically being involved with someone like me and you sitting down in Starbucks in Jeju together, the gradation between that enjoyment and connection and this we're having now is so kind of like microscopic. There's nothing between it. And I know that people can say that's a really subjective view, but in my personal experience, in the people that I've spoken to about this, there's very little difference between physical connection and digital connection, except this story that physical connection is much greater than digital connection.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I have lifelong friends that I barely talk to in real life, or some of them I have never met in real life. That example is Victor Gosens, right? My friend that we met through StarCraft, and we talk online most of the time, and it's just lifelong friends, and you just have fun. It's like, I think it's something that people underestimate, how strong the connections are that you can make online. It's also because you have so much dead time. Like, how often do you talk to somebody? Like when you play a game, if I'm playing a game with Spraggy, we're talking the whole time, and then sometimes we're playing video games for 5 hours. But how often do you have a one-on-one conversation for 5 hours with somebody? You get to know so much, and the ins and outs of somebody's personality and their tone of their voice, and what they're going through, if they're having a bad day or a good day. And it's also, on top of that, I'm completely disconnected from his everyday life in terms of people that he hangs around with. So it's also very safe to share with people because it doesn't have repercussions. It's not like sometimes you want to say something to a friend, but they're also really good friends with your other friends. So you might not want to say everything or how you feel completely about it because it's more of a web of social interactions, and you don't have that with people online. It's like its own thing.
Yeah. And finally, before I let you go, what's the treasure then? So, Frodo gets to Mount Doom and flicks the ring in, and that's like, and he gets to go back to the Shire as a completely transformed person. What's the goal for you here, Lex?
I really feel like I've struck the perfect balance to kind of achieve longevity in the thing I love doing. I feel like both poker and streaming, both are very hard to do for a long time. It's very much feels like a young man's game in a lot of ways. And I feel like for me, I figured out how to do this. I truly, truly believe I'll be streaming in 10 years. Like I truly believe that because of where I am right now and the choices I know how to make and when to make, and just kind of like the confidence to make them and the space that I need to make them. So for me, I've been bounced around like everywhere, but I feel like, the balance towards life and the balance towards streaming is perfect right now. So, and that's for me is just so precious because I mean, not to use precious after talking about Lord of the Rings, but that to me is really precious because it's something that in either industry is really hard to achieve. And I love the freedom that poker gives you. Streaming gives you a little bit less freedom, but as long as you love what you're doing and being able to do that for a long time is just invaluable.
Well, thank you very much for giving up your time and sharing your story on the hero's journey. Really appreciate it, Lex.
No, I really loved it. Thank you, Lee. It was very, very awesome to have this talk.